Good morning or afternoon, everyone, depending on your time zone. My name is Andrea Easton, and I'm one of the customer success managers here at Martello. I'm joined today by our support manager, Chris Millay, who's very excited to show you the new features in Live Maps 10.5, especially the new theming feature. Because there's a lot to share in 10.5, we've postponed the IQ integration spotlight to our next user group. Along that note, just one of those reminders for you guys with unlimited Live Maps licenses, you are eligible for the IQ SCOM connector. So if you haven't got it installed and would like to, just reach out to one of us and we can help you out with that. Today we'll follow the usual format where Chris will do a demonstration of version 10.5 and then we'll hold a Q&A session. Luke is on the line as well. So those of you who know Luke O'Keefe in Europe, he's here as well. So over to you, Chris.
Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the user group for version 10.5. 10.5 is a long way in coming. So before I cover 10.5, I do want to talk a little bit of the IQ upgrade. We recently released a 2.6.2 and then quickly followed by 2.6.3 that kind of corrected a couple more issues. But I did want to talk about the upgrade process. It's slightly different. It's not just running the executable. There's a few things that we've kind of learned that we need to do prior. So if you're on 2.5.1 and you want to upgrade to the latest release, it does require a step upgrade. We have to go to 2.6.1 first, or actually any 2.6.x version, really. If you happen to be on 2.6.0 or 1, then we can upgrade to 2.6.2 and 2.6.3 directly. However, even then, there's just a couple custom steps that we require because of the fact that we're upgrading the Elasticsearch version. In 2.5, we were at 5.6 or 5.7, something like that. And in 2.6.0, we were at 6.5, and now we're actually going with 6.8.1, which is the same release that's in AWS. So there's a few steps that we have to take, including stopping the app pool and a few other things. So if you'd like help in upgrading, then please reach out to us. We just kind of want to make sure that everyone's aware of that. That it's not as simple as just running the executable as it has been in the past. If you have any problems or want requests, then you can obviously email me at support@civision.com and we can go from there. So the agenda for today, quick blurb. So we came out with 10.4.0, and since then there were actually 4 support build releases. So we had 10.4.1 all the way through 10.4.4. Each one corrected a few issues along the way, but then also added a few features that were some requests of other people. So what I'm going to talk about today is basically going to be an overview of the system dashboards. We replaced and renewed our system dashboards in this release. We instituted kind of a catalog feature to help with that, to help you deploy some dashboards that we built for you and help out. That includes some of the themes that I'll show you here. I want to go through a few of the fixes and changes that we did with the support builds that are now wrapped up and included in this. And then last but not least, I'll go through the theming option. Because the theming option is a little bit more intense, takes up a little more of the time, I wanted to save that for last. A quick note about the support address. So obviously we've merged with Martello. We are technically Martello Tech now. In the coming months, the support at civision.com will continue to exist. However, emails coming into support, you may get a reply from an actual Martello Tech email address. All right, so let's go off to the lab. We'll start talking about the various things that are going on. So this is 10.5, already includes the new theme. When you first install it, it actually will have a rebuild about how the themes are going to go. I'm going to give you a little bit of a warning when I get to the theming option, that for those people who have been using the override CSS and how that's going to affect you and how you'll have to change things. First thing I want to cover is the system dashboard. So through time, we have slowly kind of been revamping the portal and bringing everything over to the front end and bringing it all Angular. The old system dashboards will still exist kind of the same way that we had with the other ones. Just like any of the custom dashboards or any old existing links that you had, all of that stuff still works. We've kind of replaced it. So if you go through the menu system, you'll see that this stuff is different. The keys to note is that you can see that it looks different now. It actually is a little more modern looking. Highly important on this is that we've updated them to include new management packs. So in the case of SQL, so this is probably extremely important. This particular system dashboard is targeting the new SQL agnostic MP. It is not targeting any of the old SQL management packs. Microsoft has basically come out and said that for SQL 2012 and above, this is now the only supported MP, so that's the reason why we went with it. If you have the direct link, the URL, the old one still exists, so that one still targets it. But there's going to be a kind of a cool feature I'll talk about here in a minute as far as how you can adapt and change this. So our system dashboards, we always had the ability to scope to a group and you can change the time. We added a functionality so you can turn around and target a different time frame as you needed to be. And we can also change this so that it actually scopes to a different group. So if I needed to, I can scope it to a different group of computers or a different group that you have in your system. One really key difference in this is that in the old system dashboards, when we did that, we actually changed the URL, and that URL you could save as a link and go directly into that particular dashboard. We no longer have that functionality in our system dashboards. We actually took that out, but we did replace it with something very, very different to still give you that functionality, but then also allow you to do another request that we get commonly is to, hey, this is great, I love this dashboard, but I would really like to remove this counter or add this thing in here or change this or target something else. And our system dashboards, they were always very static. We're targeting certain MPs, that's all they are, they weren't meant to be replaced. There's a new functionality right here that allows you to clone this dashboard. So now what I can do is clone the dashboard. Yep, I want to go ahead and clone it. I don't really need to see that. But if I go into the summary dashboards now, you'll notice that scrolling down, I may have to let it refresh here in a second. Sometimes that happens where I need to give it a refresh. So you'll notice that now I have a SQL Server clone. And the same thing will be true for IIS or for Exchange or any of the other ones. You've basically taken the system dashboard and now cloned it into a summary dashboard. At this point in time, I now have the option to go in here and edit any of the widgets that you have, add other widgets, change how its look and feel is. So if you don't like a certain, you don't want it to be a line graph, you'd rather it be a bar chart or something like that, you now can change all of the look and feel of that original dashboard. Plus, you also have the ability to create a shareable link. So now, instead of the static URLs that were in that, you can create shareable links to the new summary dashboards. You do not have an option to create a shareable link to a summary or a system dashboard. If you want that, you're going to have to clone it into a summary dashboard, and then you can work at it from there. So we think this is a better option because now you not only have the ability to change things from that original dashboard, but then also share it out through a shareable link and edit and change groups or target things as you want. So it's basically now the summary dashboards is a good starting point. That kind of leads me to my next thing, which is a catalog feature. We added a catalog feature into this mix. The catalog feature basically has a lot of pre-canned information that we've created ourselves. That includes system dashboards. So if I want to pull in and look and import these in automatically, besides cloning them, I have the option to import it in this way. That will create a summary dashboard if I need to. If I go to dashboard, these are ones that we've created that are already summary dashboards. Interesting to note, we have one for Configuration Manager. Hyper-V is targeting the Hyper-V management pack. We have one for Service Manager. The Configuration Manager I want to talk about real quick is that it's actually, they're all SQL queries is really what they, so you don't have to have a config man MP and it doesn't have to be configured correctly. But what you will have to do is when you import this in, it's just a matter of selecting it and then adding the selected dashboard. You will have to go through and actually edit each of the widgets to include your SQL Server information of where your databases are set up for ConfigMan. SCOM noise is also kind of a cool one that actually shows you some of the churn data and where your active alerts are and what's making the most noise. So we kind of created this to help you out. Some of the dashboards we've actually had for a while, we just didn't have a good place to put them. These are all going to be stored locally when you install, so the catalog's not an online catalog. It's really just pushed out and stored in the local folder structure. The other part of the catalog, which I'm just going to show briefly, if I look at themes, that is going to bring in the dark theme, the blue steel, the old blue version 8, and then the accessibility theme, and a way to get back the default theme, which for us will always be the light theme. So catalog is just kind of a way to pull in information. We look to update this in the future as we get more summary dashboards that are theme-worthy or import-worthy. that are easy to kind of target certain management packs or classes or groups or something like that. And it may be one of those things where it's already targeting a certain group and it's just a matter of you changing it to scope to something else. Something to kind of make this process a lot easier. All right, so that's the catalog. Now I want to kind of talk about certain things that we built in through our support builds. And the first thing I want to talk about is when we go as a SCOM administrator, you're going to notice this cache option. Quick kind of backstory here. As we've been going through version 10, we've been trying to speed certain things up to make it faster. What we do is we actually spin up an SDK for individual users. With that, the permissions and all of that are kind of set in the SDK. So what we found through time is that people will change permissions in SCOM itself, and we would still have the old permissions based on the SDK of how things were related. And it wouldn't reset itself until the app pool reset. If you had a knock screen up and running, that could mean that you never had it reset because it was always up and running. So therefore, you had no way to clear it except for to do like an IIS reset or something along those lines. So we added this way for you to remove cache, and it does a couple functions. A, you can see how many people have actually logged in. It is only looking at one worker process at a time. So if you have multiple worker processes, this may give you kind of a partial number. But it will allow you to clear out all of them or clear out an individual one. This is really handy if you are testing permissions, like you want to find out, okay, it also may show why things are maybe a little inconsistent at times, but it does give you a way to clear out the cache. Because we're clearing out one cache, we decided to go ahead and give you the way to clear out all of the cache, which included the memory cache too. So as you're making changes, especially to permissions or something like that, and you want to kind of clear things out to retest, then this is your best way of doing that without having to do a complete like IIS reset or reboot of a computer or something along those lines to kind of clear out any of the caching that we're actually doing. We felt this was kind of important, and that was one of our support build options, and then now is in version 10.5. All right, so the next thing is services overview. We made a drastic change in this area. You should notice that it's a lot faster than it used to be. We've had a few people that have talked about the fact that when we redid our services overview, that the service overview page seemed to slow down. So we made a change in here and figured out what we were doing that was causing the slowness. So in 10.5, you should notice this is a lot faster. We literally had people that were complaining and telling us that the services overview suddenly changed and was taking 40, 50 seconds to actually load. Those people had 100 or so services, and since then they've all said that, hey, it's back down to about a 10-second process. So we know that it works well. It's just a faster way to pull in the services. All right. Now, because of this, one of the other nice things that we did, let me get here. So we added a couple new widgets, or we added one widget in particular. The old way of adding services basically was just a heat map look to my service. That's why I added this one. We did add a new services overview widget. This was one of our support builds, so some of you may have this already, but most of you probably don't. What's nice about this one is I can basically come up with kind of a simplified version of the services overview. It does give you the ability to either show all services. By the way, it's still going to adhere to permissions. So if you set up a user role and that user role doesn't have access to a certain service, then they're not going to see that service even though you show it in here. But you can turn around and say, look, I want certain services to be included in this list. That helps you pull up and create departmental type service overviews. You can also say, look, I only want to show certain columns. Maybe you don't need the infrastructure column or something along those lines. This should be helpful in that aspect that you can now create views that are more specialized and not necessarily have to worry about, permissions, especially if you've got someone who's got a lot of permissions, but yet you still want a page that only includes certain services for them or certain ways of doing that. We've added this in here. You can also change the way that it's sorted, by either alphanumeric or by the health index or by health state, and it'll roll that up. So that's now included in 10.5. We made a change to our Sparkline, and it's really focused on the fact that we were doing something with the Object Explorer details, and I'll kind of explain that when I come to that in a minute. But the Sparkline looks a little different. The big key here is we're actually giving you values for max and min. We still make it so you can drill down into the list. You actually have two Sparklines now, a Sparkline and a Sparkline Compact, to give you a couple different options on how you want to see this information. The key here really came down to what we were doing in our Object Explorer. So I'm going to kind of drill into Object Explorer. So it was using the same Sparkline information. We had a few people that talked to us and said, look, the Sparklines are great, but the problem was that it was hard to compare time frames with other performance information. So instead of having two columns like we used to have in here, you now have one total column. It's all Sparklines. You can now easily compare, hopefully, a time frame. No, it's not a graph that has a line down at the bottom so you can see exactly where things are. If you need to see something like that, yes, you can still open up the blow-up image of it and see exactly how things progress this way. But, now it should be easier to kind of look at, that this is a one-day period and see where things kind of line up as they go along. So that was kind of the key for why we made the change and presented that information in the Object Explorer. All right, so next thing, it's the same thing, it's just asked a couple different ways. We've been asked to add different columns into the alert listing widget for a while, or the alert management side. So that is now in this particular release. So if I come into this alert list, you'll notice that I have ticket ID already added into that because I did that in my earlier session this morning. You will actually have this columns section where you can turn around and add or remove columns that you simply don't care about anymore or want to put into play. So when you talk about an alert listing widget, it is on a per widget basis. So you can literally have multiple widgets open or on a page targeting different columns. So if you need one to say, I need custom field 1 and another one say custom field 2, that's perfectly fine. No, you can't change the order of the way they look, but you can add the columns as they are. So that now is in play. That was actually in one of our support builds, so some of you may have it, some of you may not, but it is definitely in version 10.5. All right, so the same thing is true if I come into settings and I look at the alert settings. On the alert settings, a lot of you were going in here setting this and noticing that it really had no effect, especially on any of the newer pages. So now you can come in here and actually change and add in like custom field 1, custom field 2, ticket ID, however you want to do this. And then based on how you add this and save it, when you go into the alert management section, then you will notice that those fields will now show up. That is a global setting. So obviously it affects any time we reference back and go into the alert management feature. So if we're coming back from a custom dashboard or you're coming in here to look at it, it doesn't really matter who you are. Those fields are going to be open. Doesn't matter whether the alert has something in that. This one is more of a global where the alert listing is definitely a per widget basis. Those are pretty much a lot of the changes that we made through our support builds. There's a few other bug fixes that we had included, but that's the kind of the main fixes or the main new features that came into version 10.5 that I wanted to highlight. So now comes the fun part, theming. Before I begin theming, I want to talk about one simple thing that everyone needs to be aware of. Up till now, we had version 8, the version 8 look, the older look. You had a way to set colors in it, and then anything that was new, if you wanted to go to a dark theme, you had to use the override CSS. And I had created that CSS sheet to put it in place. Version 10.5 basically kind of changed everything in the back end as how we're using it. However, it still uses the override CSS in a way that you can still override even the theming option. If you have the dark theme in place right now and you simply upgrade to 10.5, this is my warning. This is what you're going to see. It's basically going to be a hodgepodge of ugly because everywhere that you see here that's black is because that's being overridden by the override CSS. Things just don't look right. And so my only suggestion right now is that before you begin, make a backup of the override CSS file, put that off to the side, clear it all out, and then you can upgrade. Or you can do that after the fact. It doesn't really matter to me. It's just you want to make a backup of it because you may have created an override to increase like the font size of the display name of the health states, which is perfectly fine. I've done that to a few people where you would like that to actually be bigger. So it's a little easier to read when it's across the room. However, you definitely want to remove anything that has any kind of color to it because it's just simply not going to be needed, and it's going to force that as a global override across all themes. So it doesn't matter which theme option you're looking in place. So this is kind of my big, hey, the dynamics change. So themes, if I come down under the administrator, I can see themes in this part here. And you start off with the default theme. The default theme, it's not set up to allow you to change every little thing, but there's a lot of major things that it should allow you to change. Background is key. Obviously, the background is going to be the background of what we're looking at. This is the light theme. Everything from that point is kind of shades of that main color that you're choosing. So when you look at widgets, and I import the dark theme, you'll kind of see hopefully what I'm showing. The primary is going to be things that are going to be where I'm highlighting across. Admin is going to be this right here, this bar here that kind of displays, hey, to let you know you're in an admin section. And there's only really a couple areas that use the accent. I noticed that the accent was used in some of the horizontal bars. I haven't really found anywhere else that it's used, but that's kind of a simple one. Now, you do have the option to change your signal color. So error, warning, success, doesn't matter where you hold here. I'm actually going to change this in a test here in a moment. The key to know that is across the board. So it doesn't matter whether you're in a custom dashboard or a summary dashboard or a service. If you want your red to be a little darker or change it up, you have that option now, and it's going to simply go across the board. Same thing with the graph colors. So everywhere that there's a graph, we always start with G1 as the first line. That includes your Sparklines. So if you would like to change those colors, you have that option. You've got to figure that most people do like a top 10 when it comes to the graph colors. So chances are you're really only going to go to G10, but we do go all the way to G20 that you can change the colors and repeat them. And by the way, after we hit G20, and if there's more than 20, then we simply repeat the scheming option. So to import themes, I'm going to go back to the catalog in this case. Go into themes. So I'm going to add my dark theme into this mix. I'm going to add the blue steel. And I will add the accessibility theme. So these are the ones that we have kind of out of the box. Now, I've added them in here, and I'm going to go back into the theme so you can see that they're there. And as you look and click on each individual one, all you really notice is the changes here. It's not, the theme is still whatever theme is loaded. So that's important to know that just because I change this does not necessarily mean that I'm going to see something different. These are currently not published. So if I come into my own user, I see that I really only have the default theme right now. This allows you to make changes, play with it, and then when you finally think that you're good, then you can actually publish it. And really only those users that have moved to that one and have selected it in their user profile will see that theme. There is a way to make changes and make that your default theme. So if you want everybody to see the dark theme, then we can do that too. So dark theme, I'm going to go ahead, and the first thing you can do if you want to see what the things look like, you can hit the preview option. The preview option is basically going to load up the home screen, whatever you have as your home. That's key to know. So if you've made a lot of edits and your home screen is really nothing but a custom dashboard, then it may not show a lot for you. However, this is the first way to tell what things are going to look like. I'm going to go ahead and publish this just for right now. By saving this, one of the kind of lessons learned on this is, as I've learned and gone through this option, this is something that we'll look to improve on in an upcoming release, is I was in the dark theme and I saved it. And as soon as I saved it, it reloaded the whole thing and it was back to being on the default theme. It'll always come back to the default theme. So if you're making incremental changes to try to change something minor and look at it, just realize that when you come back after a save, it'll always be at the default theme. We will improve that process so it comes back to the same theme you were on. But since I published this, I can now actually come in here as my user and go to the dark theme. So this will do a reload, and you'll see exactly now this is what I'm seeing. And you'll notice that I did a reload and I'm back to the default theme. If I want to, let's say I like the dark theme, but I really want my dark to be a little bit darker, then I have that option. I can come in here, I can save that. Now I have a much darker look to my setting. The blue steel, I'm going to go ahead and publish that. In fact, I'll just go ahead and publish all of these so we can kind of look at them as I go through things. You have options here. Let's say you like some of these. If you want, you can clone that particular look to make edits on it on your own and do a test, kind of doing your own testing. You can export out a theme. if you turn around and decide, you know what, hey, this is great, I'm doing this in my dev environment or my staging environment, but I want to move that over to prod, then you could fully test it out, flush it out, export it out, and then import it into the other system. A couple other things of note down here, the override default theme. So let's say I'm in my dark theme and I love that, and that's what I want the new default theme to be. Then by clicking on here, that will literally overwrite the default theme. It will be named the exact same thing. So if I do this right now, I'm in my dark theme and I overwrite the theme, it's kind of do a refresh, and you'll notice now it looks like I actually have two dark themes. You can click on any one of these and rename it. So if I want this to be default, then I can change that to default theme again. So this is, when I look at this particular option, you'll notice that I still have default theme and dark theme. So you can rename it. You can rename it to anything you want, obviously. If I need to go back to something, so I've edited, I've changed it, I want to just kind of reload this particular theme that I'm on, accessibility theme, a new theme, whatever, you can load default colors. That will load the default theme, you know, the white theme, into that particular theming option, so you know exactly what it's going to do at that particular time. We've given you a lot of power here to change things up. Signal colors are going to be kind of interesting. You see that the accessibility theme, my error, I'm going to actually preview this. So it's the white theme, but we've actually taken, our reds are now more of an orangish color. Our yellows are now a bluish color. Greens are still green. Grays are still gray. The nice thing about this is if you want maintenance mode to show up in purple. So if I want my default theme and I want, you know, uninitialized or maintenance mode to show up in more of a purple color, then you can do this. There's my my default theme that I'm changing and just making maintenance mode purple. Kind of gives you a different option. So let me go into this default theme. I'm going to make my error color a bright red. I think that actually was a bright red. My warning, I want to make a little bit more on the yellow side. My green, just because I really don't like that color green, I'll make more of an aqua. Yeah, I'll save that. So that's my dark theme. Just want to kind of show that. I'm going to make sure that I'm in the dark theme, which I am. All right. So if I go around and start playing and looking at this thing, so I'll go into my group dashboard, you'll notice that, wow, that's ugly. Well, at least the yellow is. As I change things around, you'll notice it'll adapt to the different colors. As you see, you now have the power to make things a lot different in what you see. I can actually, I did this earlier today, so I might as well do it now. I changed the background to, oh, let's make it orange. So if you wanted to, you can actually do something like this. So you now have the option to make things as good or as pretty as you want, or as ugly as you want, which I actually would like to see some of these. So if you change up your theme and you like it, or it's really ugly and you think it's kind of funny, go ahead and send it to support@civision.com. It's just one of those things where, you know, you have some options to change things up. So the other thing I want to do, since I'm in this default theme, is I want to come into my CIO dashboard. I think everything's green already. Oh, this was the other change. So you notice that this now also changed across here too. There's one more change I forgot to talk about earlier that we did. If you were in 10.4 and you had a CIO or the custom dashboard, you notice that it kind of came in as a widget and didn't take up the full space. We changed that up so that now it takes up back to being more real estate on the dashboard. It still obviously doesn't take up the header or the footer, but at least it's not as compact as it used to be. All right, that is pretty much the theming option of how you can change things. I will change also, oh, you know, I forgot to publish the other views. So let me go in here and publish like the blue steel, save that, and then I will publish my accessibility theme, save that. So those are in there. So if I come into my summary dashboard, my group one, you'll notice that as I change things, I can come into theming, I can go into blue steel, and that kind of mimics the old version 8 look. Some people liked it, so that's why we kind of kept it. I know of a few people that are still using it, mainly because it was pretty close to their company colors, and that's what they wanted to keep. If I come into the accessibility theme, then that will be the white, except for the differences in colors here. That also includes my error messages. That was my dark theme that I had changed up. I personally like as I thought about this, I like it just a little bit darker. That's more of a personal preference. But feel free to move about the cabin, change things up as you want. So with that, I'm done with the user group. So next user group will be determined. Of course, if you have an idea that you'd like to know about, then please let us know. You can email that to customersuccess@martellotech or support@civision.com. With that, have a good day.